Hello and welcome to In Touch with Durham County. I'm Deborah Craig Ray, Assistant County Manager. I'm joined by my co-host, County Commission Chairman Michael Page.
Hello, Deborah. As our regular viewers know, we use this TV show to interview our Durham County department heads, staff, and community partners to share important information about the many valuable programs and services.
It is our pleasure to welcome back County Manager Wendell Davis to talk about the progress of managing for results. You may recall when he joined us in January, we heard an overview of this management process that is reshaping Durham County government. He is with us today to share an encouraging progress report. Joining Mr. Davis is Keith Lane, Senior Budget Analyst of the Budget and Management Services Department, who will talk about the important element of budgeting in managing for results and how it references not just finances, but personnel, equipment, service provision, and more. Library Director Tammy Baggett joins the County Manager in our second segment to talk about how her department is participating as a pilot department in the first phase of Managing for Results. And she will also discuss how the key element of customer service is also a part of the Managing for Results model. Chairman Page, let's start our interview.
Absolutely. It's been a few months since you have been here, Mr. Davis. Welcome back, and thank you for joining us today. If you would provide our audience with a quick review of Managing for Results and the key elements.
Yes, Mr. Chairman. As you recall, we came in, for the most part, wanting to get a good understanding about how we could connect our strategic plan to, quite frankly, an engine that would afford us the opportunity to have our strategic plan become a living, breathing document. And so over the last year or so, the staff has worked very hard, quite frankly, to bring forward that model, our Managing for Results model. And in a nutshell, basically what managing results are is four simple things. It's how we plan for the future. It's how we budget and allocate resources according to our plan. It's how we manage through those processes, and just as importantly, how we learn and evaluate from those things that we do in order to get better at it.
Great. So Managing for Results is a management concept that uses performance measures or data to help improve accountability and outcomes. Can you explain that cycle?
Yes, absolutely. For the most part, one of the things that we talked about when I was here last year was primarily establishing program budget structures. And I'm happy to report today, and Keith will talk about it in greater detail, that we've moved toward that end. There's pilot projects that Keith will talk about in great detail, but in a nutshell, primarily what it means is that we're going to count the things that we do. We're going to essentially use metrics and data to try and inform our decision making in order to produce better outcomes and service levels for our citizens.
Right. I believe that the goal is to reshape or realign our organization. And how do Managing for Results and Durham County's strategic plan work together?
Well, as I said before, you know, we've got 5 strategic plan goal areas. Those are community, family prosperity and enrichment, health and well-being for all, a safe and secure community, environmental stewardship, and of course, accountable, efficient, and visionary government. The Managing for Results model affords us the opportunity to really lay out strategies under each of those goal areas, objectives, and ways that we can, once again, count what we're doing in order to get a real good understanding about how well we're doing in those service areas. And it also gives us an opportunity going forward to get feedback from the community, feedback from the Board of Commissioners as we update our strategic plan in an effort to make sure that the strategies that we develop underneath those goal areas and those objectives are subsequently carried out in a fashion that affords us the opportunity to recognize good outcomes.
Right.
Certainly a great deal of work has gone on in this space since the concept was unveiled. Keith, I know that your department has worked very closely with that first group of pilot departments. That work has involved defining programs, developing measures that align with departmental goals. Can you briefly walk us through some of that work with those 7 departments?
Well, it's been 2 sections of work, and you briefly said those in your asking of the questions. It's defining programs and helping departments define measures. The first step was helping departments define programs, and What we mean by programs are the things that departments do at a more specific level than we've normally talked about them. For example, the Public Health Department has an area in their department called nutrition. And we budget for nutrition, and we have 15 people that may work in the nutrition portion of the Public Health Department. However, within nutrition, they have multiple programs. For example, one might be dealing with diabetes in the community. And if that's an important enough program that public health, through the strategic plan and administration, want to track it, we're going to carve out their budget in that way. In other words, instead of having diabetes be folded up into nutrition, we're going to separate it out, separate the number of people that work for the diabetes program and the costing of it, and then we're going to move towards developing measures to track the effects of that particular program. And we're not doing it just across that one particular department or that one program. We're doing it across these 7 pilot departments, and eventually we will roll it out into all county departments. Because it's through the counting and the measuring of those particular programs that we can find out what's working, how well it's working, and how much it costs. And we haven't, frankly, been able to do that as well as we should have in the past. And that's the exciting portion of this whole Managing for Results program.
Absolutely. Now, Managing for Results puts our organization in a better position to allocate resources and to obtain the results we desire from the departments. Help us understand the work that went into helping staff learn to identify programs and then craft performance measures that will be used in evaluation.
Well, we've had a consultant come in and talk with us on a number of occasions to work with departments and to work with the budget office and to work with the manager to explain the concept in detail. But mostly we've sat down with departments and asked really frank and quite simple questions. What is it that you do? And breaking those questions down. Okay, you do nutrition. Well, what in nutrition do you do, to use that example? What do you do in the finance office? The finance office is another pilot program. They do more than just cut checks and do payroll. They do a whole host of things. And we're not trying to reinvent the wheel here. It's a cost-benefit ratio to how many measures you develop and how many programs. If it costs too much time and effort to do the work, then people probably aren't going to do the work. So we tried to work within the framework of what we already knew and hopefully data that we were already collecting for measures, and say, okay, this data that you're collecting, how does it inform what you're doing? And so again, working with a consultant, listening to the manager for months now, talk about this and push this, and working with some expertise in our budget office and in other offices. That's basically what we've tried to do and help departments learn, and that's what they've been walking through, and it's been a joy to watch.
Mm-hmm. So we've been working with these departments for a while and revamping our organization. You have the 7 departments, and I can imagine some of them were maybe a little skeptical at the beginning. Is there someone who's sort of converted that you want to share their story with us?
We have a long-term budget analyst in our department named Kim Connolly, and she's worked with our finance office, and I can remember her coming in and just being amazed when the light bulb went off for our finance department as they were working through this. And this is absolutely no disrespect to the finance office, but the finances office, for the longest time, their job is to produce a year-end audit. That audit is the end-all, be-all of kind of what they do. If we get a clean audit, which we have gotten and expect to get every year, that in a way says they've done their job well. But asking them to break down their processes to more specific levels that ultimately build to a year-end audit was something that took a little bit of encouragement. But once the light bulb went off, especially for some of the long-time workers there, and to watch them embrace this and the possibilities and the knowledge and information that will come out of this process was really a joy to behold, and it makes you excited to work in local government.
Mm-hmm. Would it be fair to say that pilot departments changed their thinking about managing for results once they began to unwrap this concept and learn more about the importance of developing measures?
Absolutely. I think once they see ownership of the measures as helping them do their jobs and not just something dictate from down high, from the board, as important as the board is in the administration, as they became able to own the process themselves and what it would mean for how well they do their jobs, yes sir, they very much started to change and take ownership, and excited ownership. those possibilities.
Right, right. Mr. Davis, I understand that you use a series of weekly videos to help your 1,800 employees to understand managing for results, and how was that received?
Chairman Page, I really think it was received pretty well. One of the things that we are trying to do inside government is to become the learning organization. And so the videos were just a part of the work that went on as a result of the work that Deborah did with the engagement team. And interestingly enough, they went through a rather rigorous process to get us to that point that we could actually put something out there that the staff would in fact have an opportunity to learn from. The other thing that I wanted to point out as a part of becoming the learning organization, of course, you know, we read a lot. And so one of the things that we're reading right now is Contagious, which is essentially a book by Jonah Berger that talks specifically about how things catch on. And interestingly enough, we've learned some interesting things as we move through this piece of work here, and most importantly, are able to take some of the concepts and principles and hopefully apply them as we continue to move forward along this path. But I think things are going extremely well. As I shared with you the last time I was on the show, it was some frustrating days by virtue of the fact that I understood, you know, precisely where we wanted to go. But, you know, it takes time, energy, and effort in order to create the buy-in for your vision. And, you know, I was just overwhelmed about a month and a half, 2 months ago. We had a Managing for Results showcase. And that was an opportunity to pull the committee of 100 back in the room and to essentially showcase the work that had been going on at the team levels that had been established inside the Managing for Results model. And I think I opened up and said maybe 2 or 3 lines, and I closed and said 2 or 3 lines, and for roughly about I guess a 3-hour block, I mean, these department teams and the leads, they'd come in, they'd taken over, and I mean, it was just so very impressive and humbling as well to see how things had taken inside the organization.
Well, very good. Well, we've had a good segment, Keith. We want to thank you so much for the hard work that you're doing and helping our organization get in good shape and begin to really review what they need to understand in order to continue to move our organization forward. And we're going to move forward into our break. And when we come back, we're going to continue our conversation with Tammy Baggett and more about managing for results. Stay with us.
Hello, and thank you for tuning in to this latest video segment introducing you to Managing for Results. This is the third in a 6-week series. In the first segment, I introduced you to the concept of managing for results. Last week, we talked about the first step in the 4-phase process, planning. This week, we're going to talk about the next phase of managing for results, budgeting. Budgeting for results means looking at how every resource, whether that's dollars, people, supplies, or equipment, will contribute to the success of our programs. It's more outwardly focused than traditional budgeting. It looks not just at whether we're spending line item funds correctly, rather at whether what we're spending measurably helps us reach our strategic goals in serving our citizens. Here's Brian Jones from the Sheriff's Department to talk a little bit about how they use budgeting for results to help run their department efficiently.
Operations at the Sheriff's Office are fluid and often require quick adaptation to rapidly changing situations. This dynamic can make budgeting difficult. It can be very challenging to engage in long-term planning when unanticipated situations may change needs and priorities. For instance, winter weather events that require overtime may affect our ability to fund other projects. This makes data all the more important. With more than 450 employees and greater than 30 unique functions, it is critical that we measure performance to make certain that resources are effectively allocated, equipment is maintained and deployed appropriately, and we are making thoughtful decisions, not only for the current fiscal year, but for those yet to come. Data related to our activities drive decisions related to purchases, personnel assignments, and the creation or discontinuation of certain projects. With all the moving parts, our agency requires data to ensure that public safety efforts in Durham are optimized and that we are budgeting effectively.
Budgeting, based on data and outcomes, is a critical part of managing for results. The next step in the process is managing for results, where we implement programs and track data for evaluation later. I'll talk more about that next week. In the meantime, we want to hear your questions, comments, or thoughts. Click on the link below this video and let us know how we're doing. Thanks, and I'll see you back here again next week.
Welcome back. We are continuing our conversation with Durham County Manager Wendell Davis about managing for results. In this segment, we're joined by Tammy Baggett, Director of the Durham County Library. Tammy is leading one of the pilot departments as we transition our organization to this new management system. Chairman Page, let's continue our conversation.
Absolutely. Tammy, thank you for joining us today. And you have been at the table since the Managing for Results concept was introduced last year. What is your impression of this new management process so far?
My first impression was one of intimidation, because it was thinking about a new way of doing business for Durham County. And anytime you think about change, it always brings people out of their comfort zone. My impression now is nothing short of positive. It is the perfect way of us going forward to do business the Durham County way. It allows all of us to think about our projects that we handle in a strategic manner and to use that manner for planning with budget and service delivery.
Okay. I understand that you have been working in this space for some time and really helped with developing the model. What did that process involve?
I was actually part of the initial strategic plan back in 2011, which seems like a very long time ago. And the next logical step for that plan, while it was good, there was a step that was missing. And that step was how we would go from making a strategic plan to checklist to one that is incorporated into our everyday task. And what was needed for that was an engine, and managing for results became that engine.
Now, Mr. Davis, why was it critical that we develop our own Durham County model rather than just copy one from another jurisdiction that was also using this concept?
There's a very simple answer to that question, because as I've said on many occasions now, we had to own it. We had to have the buy-in from the bottom of the organization up. And when you're trying to change a culture, it's important for people to be a part of that process. It has to be a participatory process in order for the buy-in to be created. And so I think that was the importance of making sure that we included staff at all levels.
Mm-hmm. Now, another part of managing for results includes updating our strategic plan. Can either of you talk about that process and why it's important? Where are we in the process?
Yes,
Go right ahead.
it's important to think of the strategic plan as a document that is always in need of changing, specifically when we complete certain tasks within the document. We've been working on a portion of it to see what items need to be refreshed, specifically with our objectives. We need to make sure that our objectives are SMART, specific, measurable, assignable, realistic, and time-related. I think I said all of those correctly.
You did.
It's also important that we look at what areas of the strategic plan where we're capturing data, that it's data that we can control and have access to, and that we're not only telling our story, but we're reacting to the data according to what is found in there.
So just to remind our viewers, managing for results includes 4 key elements: learning and evaluation, budgeting, management, and strategic planning. Is that correct?
Yes, that is correct. All of those things are, and it really gives everyone the same starting point as we're moving forward with conducting business. And in the words of Jim Collins, it really helps us be able to move from a good organization to great with a solid foundation of doing so.
Speaking of the model, I understand it has a place of prominence in your office and indeed throughout the county. Am I correct?
That is correct. Speaking specifically on behalf of the library, we've used parts of this model in our revisioning efforts. The revisioning effort has allowed us to move staff from one location to another, and not for sake of moving them, but for sake of us being as efficient and effective as we can with our operation planning. It's allowed us to have additional services. It's allowed us to expand our services. One example is interlibrary loan. Now we have a staff member that is specifically dedicated to that service. That allows borrowers to get materials from other agencies outside of Durham County Library. It's books that we may not own that they can get from other libraries. So now we're a borrowing site and a lending site for that. That would not have happened without using the Managing for Result model. It's also allowed us to streamline services where needed. For example, we had 2 administrative assistants at the main library. By relocating one staff member, they're able to help balance out the needs at another location. So it helps us with our staffing allocations as well.
Fantastic. And looking at the model, the element of service, excellence or exceptional service is at the foundation. Can you talk about this issue and its importance?
Yes, service excellence is the foundation for any great organization. I am part of a team that is co-leading this effort for Durham County, and we've coined the phrase 12 keys of exceptional service. Some of those keys include our core values of accountability, collaboration, teamwork, and integrity, just to name a few of those. We're going to need to do an assessment for our customer service levels internal and externally, and then from there we can gauge where we are and also gauge what we need to do to move the needle to one of exceptional service.
Okay. And one of the things I did want to ask Mr. Manager about is, of course, we've been using these videos to sort of transform our workforce. What kind of feedback have you gotten from that?
The feedback from the videos have been very positive. As a matter of fact, one of the things that we ask at the conclusion of each of the videos, and the videos are about 2 to 3 minutes long, is that we have folks who view them go in and essentially provide feedback through a survey instrument. And subsequently, we've been monitoring those. On a 5.0 scale, the feedback has been about a 4.6 in respect to understanding the vision, the clarity of the video, and things of that nature. So they're being received extremely well. So I'll stop there, but there is one, Tammy had touched on a couple of things I did want to talk about just a little bit, but if we have time, I'll
go ahead.
Just that. Okay, so what Tammy has described along with Keith, it does really in fact constitute a major culture shift in terms of how we do our business inside government. And I'm just delighted again that folks have sort of taken it on in that regard. I think that looking down the road in respect to what our community is ultimately to become, in light of all of the growth that we anticipate, in light of all of the in-migration and a host of other things, this model will hopefully prepare us to be ready for all of those things. And it means that we are doing some things very different. Eleanor Roosevelt had a quote, and basically what the quote was, it went something like this. It says that, do one thing every day that scares you. And if you recall, Eleanor Roosevelt, subsequently during her time, she was very vocal and out ahead of her time in respect to being the First Lady. She was a great advocate for civil rights. She was, as a First Lady, held probably the first press conference for the First Lady. She was the first Lady that had a syndicated column. When we make these shifts inside of our organization, I'm telling the employees, I'm telling department directors, I want you to be empowered. I want you to think outside the box. I want you to feel as if though you have the flexibility to make changes, recognizing that we're going to make some mistakes along the way, and that's okay. As we move towards becoming the learning and the innovative organization, you have to create room for creativity and hence things to happen that you wouldn't necessarily want to happen. But life is an experiment, and as we refine our organization, as we do better service delivery, we'll have to try some new things in order to make sure that we do well in that space.
Now, what will our residents see over the next few years as we transition a next set of departments, and really what is our timeline for this completed transformation?
So we've spent the last 18 months essentially defining our strategy, building our model. We, as you've heard both Tammy and Keith talk about, we've started out with the 7 pilots. Beginning 15-16, which is our current fiscal year, what we anticipate is that we will be bringing on another 10 departments in addition to the 7 pilots that we currently have going. In FY 16-17, we anticipate expanding our implementation out to include all 27 departments, and by the time we get to fiscal years 17-18, we should have full integration of this model. One of the other things that you can anticipate is management reporting. We are now in the pilot stages of producing our quarterly management reports, and that talks about some of the high-level important public policy things that the Board of County Commissioners and the staff and administration is working on. But in addition to that, you can anticipate sort of it going on in the back room. We'll be changing our technology. We'll be building dashboards. We'll be building management reporting systems. We'll have performance targets and measurement systems that will give us an opportunity to sort of look at them, evaluate them on a quarterly basis, so that we can get good feedback, adjust our model, and ultimately, as I said earlier, get to a different service level in terms of the outcomes we desire.
So at the end of the day, how will residents benefit from managing for results?
Well, that 5th goal area that the board has identified when they initially developed the strategic plan, accountable, efficient, and visionary government. I anticipate that we will have a more accountable government. We will have a far more efficient government. We will be able to make decisions, quite frankly, that are more data-driven and not on an anecdotal basis. And I think that it will also afford us an opportunity to plan our future better as it relates to establishing that visionary government.
Tammy, are there any final thoughts you would like to add as we wrap up our segment today?
Yes, managing for results is really a step in the right direction for Durham County government. And I'll have to agree with what County Manager Wendell Davis was just saying. This model really serves each department, and it allows us to serve the community in a way of being accountable, efficient, and visionary.
Well, Mr. Manager, how can our citizens actually follow this process?
Well, there's still some ongoing internal work, Deborah, and of course, one of the things that we are doing is we're going to be spending some serious time revamping some space in our on the internet in terms of the county's website. And ultimately, they will be able to go there, not just see the model, they'll be able to see the white paper that I prepared. They will be able to see essentially all of the work elements that's going into this model. We anticipate getting to a point that reporting documents like our quarterly administrative report, the training tools such as our training videos that we use to do knowledge transfer throughout the organization, all of those things will be there so that when questions come up surrounding managing for results, hopefully within a few clicks they can get their answers.
Well, very good. We'd like to thank you both for the very good work that's going on in our organization. And we've had another good show.
Absolutely. We've had a great show today. I want to thank you both for coming. Thank you, Deborah. I can't wait to see what we will discuss next time.
Well, we've got so much going on inside of Durham County government. I'm sure we'll come up with something good. We want to thank you both for joining us, and thank you all for watching, and we'll see you next time on In Touch with Durham County. Cheers.